Retirement planning is not just about financial independence. It's about realizing a personal vision of life post-retirement. It requires balancing future dreams with practical needs. The first step is defining your retirement vision. This goes beyond finances to what you want your life to look like, whether it's traveling, hobbies, community involvement, or family time. Identifying these lifestyle goals shape your retirement, dictating the activities and experiences you wish to pursue. Equally crucial is assessing financial needs. This means estimating the money required to support your desired lifestyle, covering daily expenses, healthcare, leisure activities, and emergencies. Retirement planning tools, like calculators and budget planners, alongside expert financial advice, are invaluable in this process. They help visualize and strategize for the future. In summary, aligning your retirement vision with a solid financial plan is key. Early and careful planning ensures a retirement that's both comfortable and fulfilling.
I want to start with Fritz because I saw on Fritz's blog, you conducted a retirement blind spot study where 68% of retirees had a rough transition to retirement. Can you share, how did you and your wife go about defining your retirement vision?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. I think the findings in that study were surprising. And I think even more remarkable is if you ask the people that hadn't yet retired, only like 28% of them expected a rough transition. So there's a huge gap between the actual experience retirees have and the expectation for those that haven't yet retired. So planning for the transition is big. And I think the big thing, as your video said there, it's thinking about the lifestyle and not just the financials. And if you think about all of the non-financial aspects you get from work, you've got your relationships, you get a sense of challenge, you get your sense of purpose, self-identity, challenges. Thinking about how you're going to replace those in retirement as you're planning for retirement. And then if you decide you're going to travel or do something like that to get the fulfillment, build that into your planning so that you've got the financials running parallel with the life that you're trying to design is the key. And I think spending time focusing on the non-financial aspects of it, to me, and from the research I've done, is the biggest key. The more time you spend doing that, the smoother that transition will be, and the more sound your retirement plan will be, because you've already incorporated what you want your life to be as you're working through the numbers.
Thank you. Roger, you work with hundreds of clients, guiding them with the retirement planning. You have thousands, if not more, listeners, and you're answering listener questions. Can you talk a little bit about how you guide clients in aligning their retirement vision with their financial capabilities?
I think one thing we need to acknowledge here is that it should be a rough transition. You've never done it before. And Fritz is definitely, he and I have known each other for a long time. It definitely can be smoother than most if you're intentional about it. And the word I would think of when I think of Fritz is purposeful. It's not like he had a purpose going into retirement. He was purposeful in figuring some of that non-financial stuff out. But I think the key here to remember is it's supposed to be hard. You've never done it. And that is part of the transition. It's a major life transition. A good analogy I would use, Andy, is the Shawshank Redemption. I forget the characters' names, but when you're in prison and you're going to be released, you can be purposeful about what you're going to do with the rest of your life. But you know what? You're institutionalized in a way of life, and you're moving into a whole new way of life. And in many ways, and you've been working for decades, you've been institutionalized in work structure, the community, how you're going to pay yourself, how you're going to be fed. And when you retire, you're released. Yeah, it's going to be a little hard until you find your sea legs. A lot of this, though, is being purposeful to trust yourself that you're going to figure it out.
And what is your experience working with clients? Like, what do you think are the most overlooked aspects of financial needs planning for retirement?
Well, it's interesting because I think, when you're in your 20s and 30s, that stranger is so hard to save for. And Fritz, what you were just talking about in terms of, envisioning that future life, what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? how do you want to spend your time, paradoxically makes it much easier to save for that stranger. So that already is a great way to light that part of your brain up and actually light the personal side of your brain up and make that easier to do. So I think that's a great way to start. The thing I find most difficult's the wrong word, that I think I hear a lot from Gen Zs and millennials when they're struggling with this concept of saving for retirement is they don't feel like they have enough money to save. So there's a conversation about, well, you may not have all the money you want to save today, but you will the next time you get a raise. So let's start by just putting a little bit away today. And then when you get that raise, you're going to put half of it into your savings. And that's how you get the savings bug going. You don't have to bite off 10 or 15% today, but you need to get there in 5 or 10 years. So let's do it now. The second thing is, I think when you're younger, you don't have the life experience to understand how compound returns work. Like maybe you understand the math kind of, but you haven't seen it. And there is something magical about, if you've been saving in your 20s and 30s, when you're, let's say 35, and you look at your 401k statement or your brokerage statement, and you go, oh my gosh, look at all that money. Did I do that? But when you're just starting, all it feels is like, and I'm not going out with my friends again. Why am I doing this? Right. So that's a real challenge too.
Yeah, it's great advice to start early, and it can start with baby steps. You can wait until that first raise, and you just bank that little bit of savings, and it's the beginning of something. And it also gets you started in the right habit that you can continue and build upon.
It creates a virtuous circle, and you see yourself as a saver, and that is also magic, right? You suddenly are a person with financial resources, and you suddenly know what you're doing, right? One of the huge obstacles is a sense of, I'm going to do it wrong, so I better not risk doing it wrong. I don't know what I'm doing. It's safer not to do anything. And that is, like the only wrong thing you can do pretty much.
And my daughter just had this epiphany. She's 26 years old, and she's not quite sure what she wants to do with her life. She doesn't make a ton of money, but she lives independently. And I goaded her to get her 401k going at Starbucks, which has great benefits programs. And she came to me the other day, like, I have like $8,000 in there, and she doesn't contribute a lot. And I think she just saw that click of, oh, okay, now I sort of get it. And that really does help. It was really cool to see too.
It's magic. I got a great book for her too. So you just,
Colleen, can you talk a little bit about the approach to, or the challenge of planning for short-term financial needs and long-term financial needs?
Yeah, Andy, I think as everyone had mentioned, with this being difficult, this is a great place where you could work with an advisor, right? So if you're trying to think about short-term financial needs, if you're in retirement or even like pre-retirement, we would say start thinking about what do you need for the next 3, 5, 10 years for basic living expenses, right? Is your home paid off? Is your car paid off? Do you have big expenses coming up, say weddings or things in the future? So it's kind of balancing, what do I need in the near term and how much can I spend from the portfolio? But then also balancing that with, okay, I could live for 20, 30, 40 years in retirement. I need to make my money last. So kind of keeping an eye on spending enough to live the life that you want and have the lifestyle that you've envisioned and saved for, but also employing some sort of prudence around how much you're spending so that that money can last throughout your lifetime.